we're a 560 hectare organic farm. So we've been organic since about 2005. The farm is about 160 to 200 meters above sea level, with a average rainfall of about 80 centimeters. And as said there, we run a breeding flock of 200 ewes, 2,000 ewes, sorry, and 240 breeding cows, beef cows. So, yeah. We all stock are finished on the farm, all the progeny is finished on the farm to organic and PFLA standards. So the PFLA is a pasture-fed livestock association, which basically means that there is no grains fed to any of the ruminants on the farm. Okay, so if we could go to the next slide. Yeah. So now, what made us move to an all forage-based system? The financials, has to be said, was one of the main drivers in this. At the time, in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, the UK being hit by BSE. We were in the middle of a foot and mouth epidemic, and we had recently purchased the farm, so we had mortgages as well. At the time, that coincided with low stock values. So for us, we were in a financially unsustainable situation, so something had to change. With that, the realization that the land we were farming, we weren't using it to the best of our ability. And when we had some consultants come around, we realized that we were actually only utilizing 50% of the grass that we grew, which was a bit of a shock to us, considering that the land that we'd recently bought, the reality was that we were not utilizing it to the best of our ability. One of the other things was, we thought the system complemented our skill sets. It's what we were interested in. We were interested in livestock, ruminant livestock, sheep and cattle, and you know, the fact that they were best to eat grass. It suited what we wanted to do, and we thought, if it's something that we'll want to do and enjoy, we've got more chance of making a good job of it. Equally so, the realization that ruminants, as has been said by some of the previous speakers, are very inefficient users of grain. You know, we thought we needed to have a change. So, next slide, please. So what did we need to know? We needed to relearn ourselves about grassland management. It's an art which has been lost. If you look at some of the publications from 100, 150 years ago, it's talked about a lot, but I think the introduction of artificial fertilizers and grain feeding allowed us all to take our eye off the ball as far as grassland management went. So we had to learn that. We had to learn about the dry matter requirements of our different stock classes, and how to feed them well, and what time to feed them well, and what time we could actually pull back on feeding them. So that was all to do with feed budgeting, knowing the type of stock that we're keeping, the condition scores on the breeding ewes, and what we needed to carry them through a winter on a no grain system. The first time we tried to outwinter cattle, it failed miserably, and it took us 10 years to have another shot at it. But I think one of the most important things was the peer-to-peer learning, which has been mentioned before. It's so important for us to get in amongst groups of farmers who are going down the same path of us, or who have been there and done it. So what does it look like? Summer is a time of bountiful grass growth, so it's quite simple really in the summer. The legumes play a massive part in what we do, which has been talked about before. Red clover is our red and white clover, our legumes that we use most of all, along now with mixed species lays, plantain and chicory playing a big part too. They are the key performance drivers, the legumes and the herbal lays. They are where we get our performance from the finishing cattle and the lambs. But as you can see in the photo of the cows there, what we intend our cows to eat is the more marginal land. You know, they can live off this rough grazing. We allow the grass to grow, to express itself, so it increases the biodiversity. So not only do we keep cows relatively low cost on low quality food, we're also having a positive effect on the environment. We use a lot of electric fencing, subdivision and rotational grazing play a big role in our farming system. So part of this, one of the main things we do in the summer is to prepare for winter, because anybody who has tried all grass systems or all forage-based system will tell you that the winter dictates the stock and density of your farm. What have you got the capability to carry during the winter? And as you can see from the photos there, we have stockpiled grass, we stockpile grasses and forages to help us get through this period. So without having grain as a buffer, we need to have the skill sets and the ability to do this, and this takes time and learning. So if we could have a look at the next slide, please. Collaboration. It's been spoke about already today, how important I think it is and how important some of our other speakers think it is that we as livestock farmers learn to work with our fellow arable. For us, we've had a 15-year working relationship with an organic arable farm up the road. For them, it means that they can have the clover in as their break crop. We manage the clover layers for them. It saves them having to head out with machines to top, and also they get the nitrogen fixation. It's an income stream for them while there is no crops growing on the land, so we pay them for this. It helps weed control. For us, it allows us to upscale our business without the investment in land. Equally so, we have parasite-free ground, as this land that we use has not had stock on it previously for the last 5 to 7 years. So it reduces the anthelmintic burden and the need for their use, which is a growing problem within the livestock sector, resistance. We also get really high performance levels from this type of grazing system. So for me, it's the collaboration and working with arable farms is a win-win on both sides, but what it takes is working relationships to be developed, and there's a certain amount of trust, but equally so there's infrastructure is a big part of it. Skill set is another thing. The skills are probably of the Arab units aren't there to look after livestock, so you know all these things have to be addressed if we're going to move forward. Can I have the next slide, please? So sustainability has to start with profitability, and I think this is one of the misconceptions about this type of system, is that it can't work. Well, we've been benchmarking now for the last 15 years, and it's shown that consistently we're in the top 25% of producers when we come to whole farm margins. The profitability of our business is not affected by purchased feed, fertilizer costs, or chemical costs. All these inputs are out of our control. But the profitability of our business is affected by our management decisions. And this is why learning from peers is so important, and learning from experts within this industry is so important. And equally so, we've got nobody else to blame if things go wrong. We can't blame fertilizer prices, we can't blame the agronomist for not getting the sprays on the crops at the right time. The decisions are our decisions, and we have to learn to work with the environment we're in, we farm in, to the best of our ability. And we tend to go by the motto that you know, we'll try something but we'll never fail, we'll only learn, which we like to adhere to. Could I have the next slide, please? Data and genetics, they play a big role in what we do. Collecting data helps us ensure we're using the right genetics for a forage-based system. This, for us, means maternal genetics. Generally, the expensive part and the bit where people fall down on all forage-based system is winter time, and productivity from that winter time. So the ability for that maternal genetics to get through a winter on a forage-based systems requires them to have fat cover, requires them to have low intervention when it comes to lambing time, because everything's lambed outside and all the cattle are calved outside. So yeah, so with us, with data collection, we think it's a massively important part of the decision making that we make. On-farm data is a big part of running a profitable business. If we don't know the information, we can't act on it. And hearsay does not necessarily represent what is going on your farm. So industry averages cannot always be taken for granted as far as what is actually occurring on the fields and on the stock on your farm. The performance that we would target would be in the cattle, we will be looking for 1 kilogram a day of lifetime gain. Most of the cattle are slaughtered at between 18 and 19 months off grass. Sheep-wise, the terminal side lambs run 2 flocks. We run an A and a B flock. So the A flock breeds our maternal replacements, and the B flock, which is the bottom 25% of the flock, are put to terminal sires to produce fat lambs. What we look for off these is a 360 grams a day daily live weight gain, and we're looking at an average of 92 days to slaughter with a carcass weight of just under 19 kilograms. So this compares very favourably to most grain-based systems or concentrate systems for sheep production. Can I have the next slide, please? So what's stopping this from becoming mainstream? Who's promoting the system? Well, it's not the supply industry, because there's nothing to sell us. When I say nothing to sell us, we do buy an odd bit of electric fencing and such like, but it is not big business for somebody. You know, industry is much happier to come along and sell us solutions to our problems, be that in the form of big machinery or mixer feeder wagons, rather than just letting the cattle do what they are doing best, and that's graze the ground that they're on. Grassland management, as I mentioned before, is a skill that's been lost. Unfortunately, it's an easy opt-out to continue to feed animals with grain. You know, it gets you out of a lot of performance holes, and you know, a lot of the time grassland in this part of the country is used as pretty much a store period for cattle to be brought back inside and then finished on intensive grain systems. And equally so, the agricultural educational establishment still doesn't recognise this as a mainstream system for beef and lamb production in the UK. This is no fault of their own. This has to be an industry-driven thing. This has to be driven by farmers who see this as a viable option and believe in it. And the only way we can do that is by you know, having professionals like yourselves who are speaking today and farmers like us talking about it and continuously proving that it is a viable option for a modern farming system. So on that note, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.